Welcome to Session 8 of Roads Uncharted. My name is Vana Mary, and I will be your dungeon master for this session. As always, I am joined by my lovely, entertaining, and such kind hearted players. I'm sure you'll grow to love them if you haven't already. So, it's been a while. We've taken a couple month hiatus. We've recorded and posted some special episodes for some of the players, which I hope you've taken chance to a moment to enjoy. And let's get back to the actual story, shall we? So where we left our party, they had left the village of Kesh after a night where they fought a terrible creature that escaped and took the life of a small child. The villagers, regardless of the outcome, were still happy with the fact that the party had been brave enough to attempt such an endeavor. And on the road, the party met twin brother moldier elves named Arlen and Ezra, who convinced the party that it was a good idea to travel with them to Isha, a city built into the edge of a canyon. Now, they reasoned that Isha would be a good travel point for the party because, well, it's kind of a shortcut to where the party's headed to. Kidova, a home city of the Silaran elves, where supposedly a great university and library sits, a place that maybe they can find answers to the mysteriously disappeared children in the city of Celine. Riala, Jokul, and Eight, you have arrived with Tate at Isha. The doorway to the city is just inside the entrance of the canyon. Before you stands a gateway that was carved from the stone itself. From the floor, almost to the uppermost edge of the canyon wall, stand 4 columns. And beyond these columns, the founders of the city carved what could be construed as a mock-up of a grand entryway to a manor or small castle. Most of the stone has been chiseled to look as if sandstone blocks have been built into the dark brown stone of the canyon, with statues added to appear as if people were peeking out through the windows. Snakes and other more unrecognizable creatures are carved at the edges and along the columns to appear as if they're guarding the city. The air around you is hot and dry, the sun blazing above you in a cloudless sky. Yesterday you arrived at the edge of the desert, and the twins insisted you spend the day resting. Best to travel the remaining distance in the cool of the night. At midnight, you were back on the road, and as the sun climbed overhead, you made your way to the entrance of the city. Thankfully, the edge of the desert is more rock than sand, but Jokul and Riala, you can definitely feel the chafing where sweat and debris has worked its way into the folds of your clothes. Ezra and Arlen had asked that you wait for them to conduct their business before heading into the city. You were able to enjoy some shade under the entryway, with mugs of cool water provided to you by children wearing beige robes. The twins made quick work of exchanging their goods, as their contact had been waiting at the entrance impatiently when you arrived. From what you can gather from their conversation, they should have arrived 2 days ago. They had said at the start of the trek that it would take 10 days to reach Isha, but little did you know that it was because they would stop at a few towns on the way to exchange goods and gather news. It was during this wait, while you sipped on your cool water and relaxed in what coolness the shade could provide, that Tate confessed he would be leaving. Over the course of your travels with the twins, he grew wide-eyed at the tales of their adventures and wished to join them in exploring the world. He also reasoned that it would be better to cover more ground, and while you head to Kidova, he can wander to other parts of the world in search of answers to the missing children from Celine. He tells you that he will contact you with any news he finds, so don't be surprised if you hear his voice in your head. Is there anything that the party would like to do before Tate heads off?
If that is what he would like to do, then you should do it. I'm gonna look in my pockets, and I'm going to pull out uh, a necklace with a pendant of The Raven Queen, it's smaller than my holy symbol. It's a very simple necklace, and I'm going to give it to Tate. Just a little something so you don't forget us. And we hope to see you again one day.
Well, to be fair, Riala, I mean, it would be kind of hard to forget you. This has been a strange experience.
That is fair. But take care of yourself. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have need of us.
Ezra is actually the first to walk up to you after the twins have concluded their business, and he says, "Well, that'll be it then." He looks between Tate and the rest of you. I guess Tate here has told you that he's coming with us. Don't worry. We'll take care of him. He'll be the younger brother we never had.
You better.
Oh,
So help you.
He raises both hands and says, "Don't worry, Riala. I've seen what Jokal over there can do on this trip. I have no intention of calling that upon myself."
Jokal just kind of smiles in the background, like, damn right.
As Ezra is speaking with Riala and Jokal, I approach slowly from behind towards Tate, my hands held together, my head cast down at him, and my eyes are soft. The usually bright violet light is fairly dim, and as I get close to Tate, I look down and say, "Tate, I realize we may not be best friends, but we are friends. And don't forget that no matter where you go, and the places you wind up and the people you see, you will always be a Jones, and you will always have a family to return to should you decide to come back to us."
Eight, you don't have to be all sentimental, but that's fair. And with that, Tate crawls into the back of the cart. Ezra heads up to the front and takes his post in the driver's seat. And Arlen walks up to you, Jokal. And he gets as close to you as he can without being too awkward. And he kind of mutters, "A word to the wise, friend. Manners matter here."
Jokal will just kind of cock an eyebrow at that, but I'm like, he'll just kind of look at Riala and be like, "Have I been misbehaving?"
I enjoy that he looks at Riala
Or no,
to figure out if he's been misbehaving.
I instinctively said Riala's name, and I'm like, wait, other person.
Arlen laughs a little bit then says, No, just the Asharans are generally friendly folk, but they have been known to take offense if you don't mind your manners. Ezra, and he looks over the cart and looks back at you and says, "You know what, it's best not to delve into it, but let's just say there's a reason we do our business outside the city now."
Understood.
But I wish you the best of luck on your travels, and hopefully we'll see you again one day. I mean, the world can't be that big, can it?
You'd be surprised. And Jokal will smile and just offer him a hand.
He takes it.
Shake his hand goodbye and just nod.
And once you're done, Arlen joins Ezra at the front of the cart. And as it disappears over the hill, away from the desert, but not exactly the way you came, you can see a very large hat waving goodbye in the distance. Now, the children's chaperone, A young woman wearing a dark brown scarf over her head and draped across her chest turns to you and says, "Welcome to Isha. My name is Sahar. Are you here to visit or for some other purpose?"
This is a stopping point for us. On the way to our destination.
Are you planning on staying one night or two?
I'll look to my companions and I'll say, one or two nights, I think, is what we'd be staying, right?
Assuming we can collect our supplies in that time. Yeah, we will be out of here in a day or two.
Of course.
All right. Well, my uncle runs the inn. It may be full. Our princess is getting married tomorrow, and there are a lot of people that are from out of town. So I do not know what he can do for you. However, I know there are some people who would be more than willing to open up their homes if you were willing to work for your food and lodging.
Looking at my companions, would that be okay?
Jokul just shrugs. I got no problem working to earn my keep.
We would be more than okay with that. We're happy to help.
Well, that is wonderful. I hope that you will not have to worry about that. But in the event that my uncle, Nadine, cannot host you at the inn. Now, come with me. So she leads you through the entrance, and you can hear the iron portcullis that had been raised before being lowered. And it ends in a loud cling as iron hits stone. As Sahar and the children lead you down into the city, the floor begins to slope gently. The tunnel is actually large enough for two carts to travel side by side, and from the ceiling hang iron chandeliers with webby yellowed candles. Torches line the walls as well, allowing for enough light to permeate when the sunlight is far from view. It's much cooler here, and you can hear the sound of shoes and metallic feet scuffling against the stone. After a while, you start to hear the sounds of life in the distance, chatter and laughing, and the bustle of the city, muffled against the much louder sounds of livestock. The floor eventually evens out, and when you turn a corner, you find that you have reached an area where, in fact, livestock are kept. Sections of the rock have been carved out to form pens where cattle, goats, and sheep are kept. There are a few men milling among them. Some are waving their hands emphatically at the livestock and between each other, and some are feeding the animals, and others are just sitting, watching you. Sehar turns to you. "We must leave the animals here. I promise you they will be safe. My cousin, Talib, cares for the stable and takes good care of his charges." And she points over to an area that has been sectioned off, and a wooden stable has been constructed, and you can see that there is a man wearing pale blue robes and a large headscarf, and he's feeding two chestnuts.
Sahar,
She turns to you.
if I may, I'm quite curious about the large iron gate that we passed through. Does the city have need of such defenses these days? Or is it something that's there for show?
"Oh, we have not needed it for some time, but I believe you say old habits die hard. Besides, nights. You never know what is outside in the desert. It's always better to be safe.
Then that would mean, at some point in this city's history, such defensive barricades were required. Interesting. I would love to hear stories, if you have any to share.
Yes, I have been told stories about great wars between the tribes.
Looking around, how big is Isha? Is it like a
Well,
small
you don't really
village?
know yet, because what you
Okay.
stand in is this kind of a tunnel that has been. So Isha itself is actually a city that has been built into a canyon wall.
Oh, okay.
So right now you're in a tunnel, and the tunnel has widened out a little bit to form an area where livestock can be kept. But as far as you can see, you haven't actually reached the city just yet.
Okay. I was picturing something different in my head. Good to know.
No, that's good to know that that's where your head is at, because that means I'm not doing my job.
No, I was picturing like all the carvings and stuff, but I was picturing like carved into like the cliff edge. I was picturing like Fair's Roost rather than like inside.
Ah,
Like
no, the
tunnel-wise.
entryway is on the outside of the canyon. And what you've done is you've gone through that entryway, and now you're inside the tunnel leading towards the city.
Gotcha.
So we're talking like a dwarven fortress rather than like the Native American where it's just kind of clinging onto the side of the cliff.
Yes, we're talking more dwarf style architecture, but without the dwarves.
Gotcha.
How much would it be to house our steed here?
She turns to the man. Talib, arakaba, arakaba, and she gestures, and the man comes toward you. Talib, these people would like to know how much it would cost them to house there. And she points to Maeve and Bessie. Are you staying for one night or more?
1 or 2 nights, depending how long it takes us to resupply and restock.
5 silver for one. If you stay for 2, I can discount.
Okay, we'll pay that, and then if we do end up staying, I'll come back and pay again. So I'll give him the 5 silver.
He takes it, and out of a separate pouch, he pulls out a piece of parchment, and he tears it into 3 pieces. He gives you 2, and he says, put one on each of your animals, and it will help me keep track. And you can see on the 2 parchment pieces he gave you that there is 3 dots and a couple of squiggles. You don't know what it means, but they have the exact same symbol on them.
All right. I'll hand one to Jokol to put on Maeve, and then I'll go to Bessie and put it on her. I don't know like what they've got going on.
Well, I guess it depends on what 8 gave her while you guys were on your 10-day trek.
I don't know. Horses don't have collars. How horse? I
But
don't know.
Bessie is a robo-mule, so...
I would like to see if there are any other mechanical animals in the throng of wildlife. Can I make a check for that?
You can make a perception check if you'd like.
Is a 15 sufficient?
You notice that for the most part, the animals do appear to be organic. You do see that perched high above one of the pens is what looks to be a mechanical bird.
Talib, I can't help but notice there aren't any other mechanical donkeys amongst the animals. Do I really need to put this indicator on Bessie so that we can identify her out of all of the other animals? She stands out fairly easily on her own merit.
Oh, that parchment is actually to make sure that other people know she is not for sale.
Ah, I see. Well, in that case, I'll just go ahead and tuck this behind her ear.
Oh, okay. And I hand it to 8.
Thank you, Riala. I take the paper from her and nestle it gently between Bessie's mechanical ear and stroke her chin and say, "Don't worry, Bessie. I'm sure that this fine gentleman will be able to take good care of you. I love you." After a few moments, I stand up and straighten my back and turn to look at the rest of the crew.
That was a great mental picture.
I was just gonna say that.
Oh my
Yes, that
God.
was my attempt at a donkey. All right. So
It was not robotic enough.
I know, right? But that's the point, is that they're not supposed to sound robotic. They're supposed to be like every other donkey. All right. So Talib takes Maeve and Bessie and leads them towards the stable, and you can see that each one gets their own stall, and they are barricaded in. So basically the door to the stall is closed, and each Talib gives Maeve a nice serving of hay, and then pauses to look at Bessie, and then turns to you and says, "What does this one eat?"
She does not eat, as she is mechanical. However, I would ask that you do your best to keep her dry.
"I can do that." "All right." And he goes back and he's tending to the other animals.
And please be sure to keep her free of dirt and grime. It gets in the gears and the mechanics of her frame and makes her a little slow.
You realize we are inside a mountain. Dust will be plentiful.
I now have this mental image of 8 taking time every night to poke the donkey with a stick to clean her of dust. I love it. Talib turns to you, 8, and nods, and you can see he kind of has this look on his face like, all right, I guess I could poke it with a stick. Gotta find a stick. And you just see him milling about. And Sahar then leads you further down the tunnel and around another corner where you are met with a large set of wooden doors. She grabs the large iron knocker on the right, and you hear 3 loud boom, 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 echoing in the tunnel. And when they open, you get your first glimpse of Isha. The area before you is wide open and is perhaps a mile long. Vendor stalls are along the walls for the first quarter of that mile. You can see behind the stalls that there are stone stairways that lead up into buildings that have been chiseled into the side of the wall, the stone wall. As far back as you can see, those buildings stretch on both sides, and most of them are similar in size, with a few exceptions. Above, you can see sunlight shining down through a large hole, man-made or natural, you don't really know. And based on the sun's position, you know it's nearly noon. Ahead of you, among the stalls, is a large crowd, and you can see people negotiating and laughing and talking. The smell of roasting meat and aromatic spices, and the occasional barn animal, assaults your nostrils. The commotion echoes in the expanse of space, and once in a while you can hear boisterous laughter. Sahar waves you in so that the doors behind you can be closed by the 2 men standing nearby, and you hear it latch. And then she turns to you and says, "As I said, Uncle Nadim runs the inn bust, the market on the right. Is there anything else you wish to know before I leave you to explore?"
There's nothing that I can think of. Do either of you need anything? As we walked in and I saw the huge crowd, by the way, I would have taken a step closer to Jokel. Because, like, large crowds. Blech.
How high up does the canyon wall go if we were to look straight up from the central area?
So the canyon itself is probably a couple miles tall. The buildings don't reach up all the way to the ceiling, but you probably have 3 levels of buildings on each side, going back as far as you can see.
I realize that I personally do not require the benefit of water. However, my 2 companions do need it in order to survive. Is there some place that we might be able to find something to drink?
There is a fountain. Bassi Market.
Being out here in the desert, and with smaller amounts of water, I would imagine that agriculture is quite difficult for your people. Is that assessment correct?
We do more trading with the other nations out in the desert. We grow some crops here, but we mostly deal with grains and protein. And she signals towards some of the vendors that are selling roasted fowl and other creatures, difficult to tell from the bodies hanging from the ceilings of their vendor stall. So part of the problem is that you are inside a canyon, and even though there is a hole in the ceiling, there's still echoing going on with the stone. And you do have a lot of people right up front by the door because the market is right by the door. And so you're hearing a lot of noise. Not a lot of it is very intelligible from where you are currently standing.
Sahar, as guests in your city, and unaccustomed to your particular culture, I would be remiss if I did not ask if there were any customs or traditions or even matters of discourse that my companions and I should avoid speaking about, or ways we should behave in order to not offend.
She quirks a little smile. I see you are a wise one. The best that I can offer you is that you must be mindful of your manners. Make sure to wash your hands before you eat and after. And always respect a hard day's work. She nods, and then she heads to the right just a little bit, finds a seat on the half wall, and picks up a red cloth that she probably left before she came to escort you into the city. And you can see that she has started mending that red cloth. The children by now have dissipated into the crowd ahead of you. Behind you, the wooden doors are closed, and at their side stand 2 men in dark brown robes, red headscarves. No visible weapons. What would you like to do?
Shall we go check out the inn? See if there's any rooms?
She said that the rooms were most likely taken. We might be better off just assuming they are full and seeking to room elsewhere.
That's fair. We can do that.
But friends, would it not be prudent to stop in at the inn and verify that there is no vacancy?
Joko shrugs. She mentioned it was the princess's wedding. If anything's going to sell out an inn, it's going to be their princess getting married.
Irrespective of that fact, I feel like it would be wise to still stop in and check. Wouldn't you agree?
As you wish.
Turning to my companions, I look a little forlorn and say, I do hope that Bessie will be okay under the care of that stranger this evening. I would hate for her to be uncomfortable or unhappy while we are out enjoying our time and staying at the inn.
You could always stay in the stable with her.
Looking a bit sheepish, I respond to Jokel. I suppose that's not the best course of action. I'm sure she'll be fine.
Oh my god, I was just gonna say Rihanna would be the only one not wanting to stay in the stable.
Yep. I'm gonna start. I'll tug on Jokel's sleeve and I'm gonna start walking towards the inn.
Jokel follows.
Alright. So you continue through the marketplace and vendors continue to call out to you to sell their spices, their roasted meats, their cloth, their bowls, and other trinkets. As you get clear of the market stalls, the city actually opens up. You have an expanse of space. The homes and buildings and whatever they are still continue on both sides of you. But now that the market is not taking up the space, some of the facades are actually getting a little bigger, a little more grandiose. And on the right-hand side, you do see a wooden sign hanging over a door that does indicate that you have reached the inn.
I will approach, and while we were walking, I would have been kind of paying closer attention to see if I see any sign of magic.
I will give it to you without you having to have made a check that you did not see anybody outwardly performing any.
Okay.
Anybody at their stalls selling clothing was still sewing manually, and anybody cooking food to sell was still doing everything the old way. The old-fashioned way, as we can say.
Jokel would have likewise had his head on a swivel, but it would have been more figure out like what the vendors are selling. Like, hey, if we need travel rations, I'll go to that place tomorrow. If we need water skins, I'll go to that guy. He's doing like a preliminary grocery shopping list, I guess.
You're doing the scoping that most smart people do when they go to like shows and conventions, where it's like,
Yeah.
all right, I like that. That's where I'm going tomorrow, and I like that. You don't want to be caught in front of a stall for too long.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's doing while they're headed towards the inn.
So you said you were going into the inn, so you go into the inn. And you realize that most of the inn is set up so that everything is carved out of stone. The bar, well, what you could call a bar, at the back is chiseled out of stone. There are wooden stools along it and a couple of wooden tables, but everything else is set up to be used from the stone itself. There are alcoves where bowls of oil are burning to give off light. And there's a cooking fire and pot set up in another such alcove in the back. And there are people sitting about eating food. You can actually see that in cases where there are more than one person at the table, that there's a large bowl in the center and there's food on that bowl, and then people are just picking at that bowl instead of having their own plate. And you see a man standing behind what you can assume to be the bar. And he looks like he's playing a game of strategy with one of his patrons, potentially.
And this is the guy behind the bar?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else?
Nope. Other than patrons.
Seeing this game going on, I get in closer to the person on the other side of the bar and settle in one of the chairs next to them and just gaze at the playing board to see what they're doing.
Of course you will.
I feel like I might want to learn to play this game.
The man behind the bar doesn't look up at you. He moves one of the pieces, changes his mind. Before he lets go of the piece, he puts it back where he found it. Reaches over, grabs a new piece, picks it up, sets it down where he had intended to put the first piece. And he says to you again, without looking up, "Can I help you?"
Well, good sir, my friends and I were hoping we might be able to rent a room at your establishment here. We'd only need one. Enough bed space for the two of them. And I turn and look to the board, and the face on the gentleman who's seated next to me, and I turn to him and simply say, "I do believe you are losing. Are you not?"
Dead ass.
The person quirks up the left side of their mouth, kind of gives you a sidelong glance, and says, "I wasn't until he put that piece down." He points to one of the tall pieces closest to him, but towards the back of the board that they are playing on. He says, "This is my king. He has just cornered it." And he knocks the piece over. "You win again, Nadim." The man behind the bar stands up, and as he's putting the pieces back to their starting places, he actually looks at you for the first time. "I am sorry. All the rooms I have are booked up. There is a big wedding going on tomorrow, and all these people from out of town have come and taken up the rooms I have." "Who sent you over here? Who said we had rooms?"
We came to the establishment at the direction of Sahar. She had suggested that you might still have rooms left.
And he starts grumbling a little bit and huffing, and "That girl always forgets. I tell her I have no room, and she always forgets and always mentions this in." "Look, Sehar is my niece, yes. She sent you over here. She forgetful girl, but she has a good heart." "My brother lives down the cavern by the big fountain. He works for the princess and has been very busy preparing for her wedding tomorrow. If you can help them with some chores around the house, his wife, Akila, is not in a position to do much around the house right now. If you can help them, tell them I sent you. I am sure they can provide lodging and food." And he goes towards the other end of the bar. And while he's doing so, I want all of you to make a perception check.
Oh god. I'm rolling in here now. 7. Can I use my passive perception? Oh no,
Well, not for this one, but going forward, yeah. As a reminder, if you want to use your passive, you have to make sure you say that before you roll, because once you roll,
Yeah.
you've made your choice.
Yeah, no, I remembered the roll afterwards, and I was
It's
like,
all right.
well, fucker.
That's all right.
No, it's not your fault. It's mine. Go on.
8, you are the only one that realizes that there is no alcohol. The man sitting at the bar is drinking water. And as you look around the other patrons, you can't tell that there's that weird hoppy smell that comes with ale. And people seem in pretty sober spirits.
That does make sense. After all, alcohol is poisonous to the organic form. I take a seat next to the gentleman in front of the bar and tap him on the shoulder and say to the man, "Excuse me, sir, but this game you are playing, it's fascinating. I would certainly like greatly if you would teach me how to play."
He turns and looks at you. You want to learn how to play chess? I can teach you, yes. How long do you have?
I look over my shoulder to my companions, Jokul and Riala, and I give them a little bit of a pleading look. Like, please, do I have time for this?
8, if you wish to stay and play the game, we could make our way over to our lodging and meet up with you later.
I look gleefully at Riala. Thank you so much. I should only be maybe an hour or so, but to be honest, I might stop by the city library after I'm finished here to see what I might learn from some of the scriptures they have there.
Well, technically, you do have all night, so.
That sounds good.
All right. By this point, Nadim has come back with a piece of parchment, and there is writing on it, and he hands it to. He holds it towards 8, and he says, "Here is the note. My brother lives 4 houses down on the right."
Thank you. I'll take the note and motion to Jokul, and then we will make our way out of the inn.
All right. So we're going to start with Real and Jokul, and then we're going to come back to you, 8. So you give me 1 second. I got to get to that portion of my notes. All right. So you go 4 houses down on the right, and you see someone standing outside the door, and you can see them actually preparing wool and turning it into yarn. And it is a woman, and she sits with a black headscarf and black robes, and she has a chain knot from her bottom lip to the edge of her chin, just straight down in a line. And
Oh, what?
a chain knot, tattoo. I missed a word. Chain knot tattoo from the bottom lip down to the edge of her chin. A chain knot tattoo from her bottom lip to the edge of her chin. I know what you're getting at, you brat. So, she turns and looks up at you as you arrive. She doesn't say anything. She just stares at you.
Pardon me. We met with your brother, I think, Nadine, over at the inn, and he sent us down this way and said we might be able to work for lodging, perhaps. I hold out the note.
She looks up at you, looks down at the note, and pulls it closer, and she looks at you very slowly, opening up the parchment. She reads what's inside, and she holds up 3 fingers as she looks at you. And then she waves, as if to say, 3? I see not 3.
Our friend is playing a game of chess with Nadine and will be joining us later.
She nods and bites a little bit at her bottom lip and puts both hands on the edge of the chair in which she's sitting in, and she pushes herself up. And you can see, even though she is wearing robes, you can see very slightly that she is quite pregnant. And she moves a little slow, and she points to you, Riala, and she points to you, Jokul. And she then waves her hand as if to say, "Follow me," and she turns and goes inside the house. 8. You go back out of the tavern and past the marketplace, and you keep heading towards the back of the cavern. And you can see that the stone stairways are still leading from the floor level up to other buildings, as it has been. You can assume these are homes, considering you see laundry is hanging from lines and there are people milling in and out of the buildings, appearing to do menial tasks. But those stairways are starting to become fewer in between. And because of the fewer stairways, you now are starting to see bridges that are built to reach from one side of the cavern to the other. And walkways are set up high above you. You can tell because as somebody comes across a bridge, you then see them walk in front of other buildings, but there doesn't appear from your angle to be a ledge. You can just safely assume, considering perspective. So the entrances on ground level, whereas before they had been small and very indicative of shops, are now becoming larger and in some cases a little more ornate in their carvings. You see, you know what, actually, why don't you make me a perception check?
I think my passive is 13. Let me actually pull up my character sheet real quick. 13 passive wisdom. Do I see anything?
With a 13, yes, you do. You actually see 2 large entrances with carvings that you don't recognize. They look similar in fashion to the slip of paper that you were given for Bessie. However, out of the entryway on the left, you do see people coming out with large texts in their hands.
I would like to stop one of them and just, excuse me, kind folk, those books you have, did you get them from this building? Is this the library?
The one person out of the group that you see exiting the building walks forward a little bit to you and says, "Yes, this is the library."
Excellent. Thank you. And I shake my head vigorously and hustle my way up the stairs.
All right. So you go into the building, go up a set of stairs, and before you, through a secondary archway, there are no doors that you can see. Through the secondary archway, you come across an open space where you can see shelves upon shelves of tomes, and a section has been set aside for scroll cases. And aside from those shelving units, you do see plenty of wooden tables and chairs. There are people sitting at some of the tables poring over
Yes,
very
yes.
large texts that are splayed open, almost as big as the table themselves. And you do see some people milling around that are covered
It
from head
seems
to toe in
there's
black robes,
plenty to
red
look at.
gloves,
Hmm.
and their faces are completely covered
Ah,
by veils.
interesting. Is there a desk or someplace that looks like it might be where someone curates the building?
There is no desk that you can see.
I approach one of the red-gloved, veiled people,
Okay.
and I wave just a salute with a quick hand wave and say, "Good afternoon. I don't mean to be a bother, but would you happen to know where the caretaker for the library would be?"
The person stops, and in a very deep masculine voice, you hear, Well, I am one of those caretakers. Are you new
Oh,
to Isha?
excellent. So, do the red gloves denote your status as a library caretaker?
The person looks down at themselves, and you now notice that there's some red threading at the wrists and at the hems of the robe. And because you are so much closer to this person, the veil that covers their face is a little lighter around the eyes, enough that you can see that there is a person there, but not enough to tell what the person looks like. And he says to you, Yes, any one of us that you see wearing these uniforms are the library caretakers. Is there
Exceptional.
something specific I can help you with?
Yes, I would like to find books with information about myths involving disappearing children.
He clasps his hands together.
It's for research purposes. Very urgent, very important, very secret. Wink. I wink at him. Them.
Do you actually like blink your eye to wink? Is that how that works?
Yes. Just like a
Okay.
mechanical lens just kind of goes.
Shutter, yeah. And you actually say wink. Okay.
Naturally.
He's still standing there with his hands clasped. And he moves his body left and right ever so slightly.
I move with them, swaying back and forth at the same pace.
So you are looking for ancient legends, ancient myths? Do they have to be regarding missing children?
I suppose they could be stories about entire groups of similar beings disappearing, but children would be of the most importance to me.
Ah, yes. Follow me. And he turns, and as he turns, he waves his left hand as if beckoning you to follow him, and he heads towards the back of the
Excellent.
room.
It's a shame I can't smell these books, but I'm sure it has a delightful scent.
He leads you past a few bookshelves and takes a turn around one of the side areas and leads you to an area filled with scroll cases. And he stands in front of one of the bookshelves for a moment or two, just staring. And then he reaches up and pulls down two scroll cases. And he turns around and hands them to you.
I hold out my hands and take them. Ah, yes, thank you, thank you. Look for a table nearby.
There are a couple tables that are nearby, and they are all empty.
I put them down on one of the tables, and I turn back to him.
Is there anything else you would require?
These will be great to start. However, I do have a more selfish request. Do you have any books or scrolls or information regarding creatures that look like me?
He pauses again and sways to the left a little bit and sways to the right a little bit. If you didn't know any better, you probably would think that he was checking you out, taking all of you in.
How
But
you
it's very
doing?
difficult to tell. Yeah, no.
I mirror the swaying again.
He pauses and says, "Let me go consult with my uh, fellow."
Contemporaries?
Yes, yes. Let me go consult, and I shall return to you. with an answer of some sort.
Excellent.
And
I will be waiting here, reading these scrolls that you have so generously found for me. Thank you.
he bows his head ever so slightly
I
and
bow
then
as well.
quietly disappears.
I would like to read these scrolls.
All right. Would you like to start with the one that he handed to you on your left hand or your right?
Surprise me. I'll be reading both.
Okay, let's start with the left. Why not? So you open up the scroll, and the text is quite faded.
Ooh, this is quite faded.
The parchment, you can tell, has not aged very well. It's not yet to that point that paper gets to when it's really old and starts to crumble.
Ooh, this is nearing disastrously brittle. I best
But
handle this carefully.
it's very yellowed.
Ooh, so yellow.
I would like you to make a dexterity check for me.
Oh, why would you do that to me?
Well, you're handling old paper.
Well,
Well, nothing.
how about a
Okay.
natural 20?
Okay.
I'm very delicate when it comes to important
You are
documents.
extremely delicate, and in fact, you
I glue it back together.
not well. You're able to unroll this parchment a lot more deftly than you thought that you would be able to, and you're able to unroll it, and there's no damage to the scroll. As you start to read it, you recognize it as the one legend that you and Tate had discussed
Mm,
many weeks, days ago, where it discusses the legend regarding when the gods used to roam Rejiv.
all right, and they
And
got mad and they punished people by
yes,
abducting, making people vanish.
the
You're making a face.
don't say that in the game. The so this scroll talks about those legends about when the gods used to roam the earth, and how generous they were and how quick they were. Some of them could be to anger. This particular scroll discusses the god Marahu, who was very vain.
Marahu?
Marahu,
Marahu?
yes,
Okay.
he was very vain and required a lot of attention from his subjects, and unfortunately times being what they were, war had occurred, and the subjects didn't have the wealth and the ability to provide bounty for their god as they had in the past. He actually became quite vengeful and made the entire civilization disappear. There are some notes added at the end, kind of like a citation or a postscript, whatever you want to call it, where it discusses, some legends indicate that eventually the village was returned to Rejiv. Others indicate that, they ended up being stuck in the realm of the gods for all eternity, and nobody really knows what happens there.
What town
But
was it?
it was the town of Velar.
And is there any indication on these scrolls where that town might be located?
No.
I will have to ask the red-gloved man when they return. The gods are so vindictive. Why would they punish those who worship them? And why would people worship beings who would punish them for not paying enough attention to them? It's almost like a child throwing a temper tantrum. I wish I could speak with Lore about this. Perhaps they would know something about it. Ah well. I will consult the next scroll.
The next scroll is a lot newer, and it is a text that regards a little bit about the history of the War of Seven Hells. You know from previous readings that that war took place roughly 400 years ago, and it resulted in the eventual exile of the Adorkai to the island of Goram. Now, while it doesn't explicitly talk about people disappearing, it does discuss the spellweavers. And
Spellweavers. Interesting.
do you remember that name?
No, I'm just acknowledging that it's interesting.
I was going to say, if you don't, you could always make an intelligence check to see if you remember that name.
I would love to, since you bring it
Okay.
up, but I'm...
You're good. You're good.
Intelligence check?
Yeah.
Anything, like knowledge or anything particular? History or...
You can make a history check.
I'd love to do that. Ooh,
22. Nice.
22, yeah.
All right. So you recall from both the tomes that you've read at your tower and the discussions you had with Arlen and Ezra on your trip, the spellweavers are a distinct class of, in general, Moldir elves. So the Moldir are the elves that are more in tune with magic from the Feywilds. Spellweavers would be like the elite class of casters. So,
Okay.
you recall this, and you recall that their involvement with the War of Seven Hells is that they were originally called upon to bring forth creatures from the Fey and demons from the seven different hells of legend, hence the name. They were very successful for most of the war. And at the end of the war, when they were supposed to send everything back, some of them were a little less willing to return their charges to their original locations. And the text discusses, from the perspective of a spellweaver, why they would have done so.
Interesting.
And it does reference that myth about the god Marahu in the town of Velar, indicating that in some cases these spellweavers felt that, you know, who are we to really judge where these creatures belong? If they feel they want to stay, we should let them stay.
To turn your back on your duty in such a manner, in the name of the greater morality, it's quite interesting. People have so many different interpretations of their duty.
When
When?
you're finishing reading that scroll, around the corner you see another black-robed figure with the red gloves.
Oh,
This
excuse
one
me,
standing
sir.
much short.
Or you, hello. I have a question.
The person who was already on their way to you stops and tilts their head to the right, and it is a much higher pitched feminine voice. Yes?
This scroll discusses a town called Velar.
Yes.
Do you know where that is?
It used to be to the far reaches of the south.
That's in the complete opposite direction I'm headed. Oh,
My colleague said that you had some questions, so I came to assist you.
great. I'd love your help. I reach into my bag and I pull out the map that I received from the helpful cartographer when I landed on the continent, and I sprawl it out on the table. I say, this map, come here, take a look, please.
She comes closer. Or what you assume to be a she based on the pitch of the voice.
This map. I am chronicling my adventure. You see,
Is this the side that has like the pictures of the flowers and stuff?
sure.
Or are you showing her the actual map?
I'm showing her the actual map.
Okay.
I landed here, and I point to the port city, and then I traveled north until I reached the town of Saline. And then I traveled all this way, and I traced the dotted line along the approximate route that I've traveled, and it ends up in the city of Isha. I say, and here's where I am now, in this library, talking to you in Isha. However, Villar, can you mark that with a big X on this map for me? Please.
That I can't do that. Because the map you have does not show the southern reaches of the continent.
Oh. My eyes kind of dim a little bit, and I frown a bit. Well, okay. New plan. You seem well read. If I flipped this map over, and I flip it over, and we were to draw the southern expanse, would you be able to do an approximation of the location of the village of Villar then?
Yes. However, before I do that, I was told you had questions about others that might look like you.
Yes, I do, but I find this matter to be most pressing.
Well, I feel we can kill two birds with one stone. Now,
Why would you kill birds?
it is an idiom.
Idiom. Oh, when you say
More
one
like
thing that means something else. I met a bird person the other week, and they were most disinterested in discussions about breakfast foods, namely eggs, and I figured I might take to heart not killing innocent birds. So excuse me for questioning the vernacular of your statement.
that's quite all right.
But yes, I was looking for information regarding people of my kind.
Yes, I feel we can do both of your requests at once. If you don't mind, let me put these scrolls away if you're finished with them.
I am finished. However, while she's putting them away, I start jotting down notes in my book so that I might refer to these approximate tales later.
Okay. It doesn't take her long to pack up the scrolls, maybe a little longer with the older parchment, just because she's trying to be very delicate. When she's finished, she turns to you and says, "Will you follow me, please? Oh, and forgive me, I've been entirely rude." She holds out a hand to you
Yes.
and says, "My name is Abla."
I hold out my hand in the same way, mirroring her, and I say, I am 8.
She takes your hand and shakes it gently.
It is a pleasure to have your assistance, Abla.
She nods her head slightly, just as the other librarian had done for you. And she turns around and starts walking farther towards the back reaches of the library. And she weaves in and out between bookshelves and around tables, and she's quick but very silent.
I'll have to come back and
And
read this later. Oh, and that one too. Oh, so many good books and scrolls to look at.
She leads you to a small room hidden behind a large tapestry up
Ooh,
against the far back wall.
this looks lovely.
And when she pulls back the tapestry and you enter the room, she closes and locks the wooden door behind you.
Oh, is
Oh, don't be alarmed. It's just
am I in
well,
trouble?
oh no. I just I prefer a little privacy, and sometimes the other librarians are not as willing to give privacy. Please have a seat. And you see that there's a small wooden desk that's very low to the ground. It's littered with sheets of paper and empty bottles, and there are a few cushions nearby. And surrounding the walls are bookshelves full of scrolls and texts.
You're just giving these chairs out?
No, I'm asking you to sit down.
I will gladly sit.
All right. When you sit on one of the cushions, she sits down next to you, and
I kind of
um,
move my knees a little bit and just kind of mutter, "Oh, all this dust and sand. I'll need to do some maintenance later."
um, she turns to you and she says, "All right, well, why don't you give me the paper? I'll draw that first, since what I have to talk to you about is going to take a little longer." Um, she reaches over and she grabs a quill and dips it in a bottle of ink, and she takes the paper from you. And she draws a rough approximation of a landmass, and then she pushes a little X at the far southwest corner of the landmass, and she says, "That is where Velar used to be."
Used to be. Is it no longer there?
No, it disappeared quite some time ago.
Curious. The text said, or at least it seemed to indicate, that the village was returned.
There are some legends that say that. Probably because there are ruined buildings there, but nobody lives there.
Well,
So if
but
the legends are true and the buildings were returned, nobody lives there. So
but the buildings were taken and then returned.
yes, which is why there are conflicting legends. Some people say that that doesn't count as the town actually being returned since the people are not there. Others indicate that yes, it does indicate that they were returned because the buildings exist. And well, you know how legends are. I mean, all it takes is a few people to have differing points of views, and then it gets changed and spread throughout the world as such.
It's the proverbial chicken or the egg.
Yes.
I see. What is a village without inhabitants?
Mm.
But what are inhabitants without buildings? It's not a village if there aren't buildings. Otherwise, it may as well just be a campsite. Curious. This is most enlightening. If only for the fact that it raises more questions.
Now, you wanted to know about others of your kind. Have you seen any?
I have not. I have not. But I've heard many things from various accounts. Some people say my kind are indentured servants. Some say my kind are warriors. And I believe that my people are free-willed, like regular folk, no different than you. I was just hoping to get some more information. I don't know what to believe, given the conflicting stories I've been given.
8. Do you? I would like to help you, but I need to know that you can keep a secret.
I kind of look to the side, quirk an eyebrow. I don't believe I've ever had to keep a secret. But I am most reliable on other things. I can cook well. I clean exceptionally. I can carry heavy things. Perhaps a secret is no more different than dusting a bookshelf or gathering herbs. Yes, I do believe I can keep a secret.
All right. She reaches up and lifts off the headscarf so that her entire head is now laid bare. And you see that she has dark black hair that is shaved on the right side, and on the left, it hangs very loose, covering the left side of her face. And she has dark green eyes, and her skin is very pale, and she's got pointed ears. And she says, My name is actually Selah. I'm not an Isharan. I've lived here for perhaps the last 100 years. The other Isharans don't know who I am or what I am. They know I'm an outsider of some sort, but they don't know the reality. And if you could keep that a secret, I can help you.
Why do you keep your identity a secret? You spend all day covered up, anyways.
The Isharans are not fans of people that cast magic. They are very leery of magic weavers because of the War of Seven Hells. And she takes off her red gloves, and you can see that on her left and right ring finger, she has tattoos that look to be like lightning bolts.
Hmm.
I was a spell weaver all those years ago, and I've come here to hide. And if they found out what I was, I would be exiled and would have nowhere to go.
You are a spellweaver. So, did you refuse to return your demons to the hells?
I did as I was asked, but too many, and the Isharans are not the only race that feel this way. All spellweavers fall in that same conceptualization where we all betrayed other people.
I see. Well, that's not fair to those of you who fulfilled your duty.
No, but that is why I must keep my identity a secret.
Do you
Can
res-
you
do
keep
you
that a secret, 8?
I have no reason to reveal that. So you can trust me. Do you resent those who have caused you to have to hide yourself?
No. I've lived long enough to be able to look past that and forgive them. And I lead a decent life here.
Hmm. Thank you.
Now, those markings that you bear, and she points to the symbols all over your body. Where did you get those?
I had these when I woke up. Well, I've always had these, I should say. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they mean. And I don't really have any opinion on them. They're just like freckles on my skin, to an extent.
All right. The reason I ask is they indicate that there's something special about you. Um, what is your earliest memory?
tidying Mother's bookshelves.
And how long ago was that?
A few years ago.
Do you remember nothing before that?
I ponder for a moment. Tap my large metallic fingers on my chin. No. I do not recall anything before that.
If you would be willing, I would like to potentially probe your memories to see if we can have something come to the surface. Learning that would help me help you understand more about your kind. The last time I saw Warforged was during battle.
Battle. You don't mean during the war, do you?
I do.
Who? Whose side did they fight on?
Both.
Interesting. Well, there's no sense in denying help that might lead to further discovery about myself, so probe away.
She nods her head, and then she touches her right thumb to the gemstone on your forehead and touches her left thumb to where your heart should be. I'm going to probe your short-term memories first, and then if that works, I'm going to probe deeper into the long-term memories.
Just one request.
Yes?
If there's anything embarrassing that you find,
I will not share it, and I will keep that a secret.
thank you.
She then closes her eyes and starts to babble in her own tongue. She does this for a few minutes, and then she opens her eyes and she looks at you and she says, I saw an old woman sitting in a chair by the fireplace. She was sipping something from a delicate-looking teacup, and you were standing at attention behind her, watching. Then, later, I saw another image of whom I'll assume to be the same woman, very frail and laying in bed as you fed her broth. Were you her servant?
That was my mother.
Your mother?
I took care of her.
All right. I'm going to probe a little deeper now. If the spell goes off correctly, you should actually be able to see the memories with me. All right? She repeats the same motions as before. This time you can see her brow is scrunching and sweat is beginning to bead on her forehead. She's babbling again in her own tongue. This time it takes a little longer. And then you start to see images flash in your mind.
Oh.
It's as if you were watching your own life's events unfold. You see yourself sitting in a chair, a woman in maybe her 50s
My
giving
favorite
you a
chair.
tune-up.
Oh, is that how I should be using those?
She's talking to you about the artifact that you're holding, a mask with a bird-like face.
It's a gift.
Mother, you can hear yourself say, where are our people from? I don't believe you ever told me. You see her pause in the tune-up, and she says, well, my child, we came from the desert. We came from a place that no longer exists. You see her put her tools down and your eyes dim. And slowly you're brought back to the office setting and you see Selah sitting in front of you. Did it work? Did you see the memory?
I saw and heard it, but it faded before she told me where we came from.
I might be able to focus on that memory. Let me try again. And again, she repeats the process. And when the images come back to you, you see that you're kneeling in the garden and Mother is sitting next to you, trimming shrubs and showing you all the different plants. Look, my child, you have to cut the shrub this way, or it will grow wild.
Of course, maintain it the proper way.
You see your eyes dim and then brighten, and you see yourself turn to Mother and you say, Mother, please tell me about the people and the places you came from. Even if they don't exist, I would like to know. She stops short, puts the clippers down, and you see her turn to you. My child, I do not see the point in the conversation, but I suppose I did bring you into this world to be curious and to ask questions. I will tell you if you promise never to go looking for them. Do you promise?
Of course.
And of course, you hear yourself say, Of course. You then see Mother smile, a very gentle and warm smile, one that you haven't seen since the last time you saw her in the flesh. Fair point, but all right. When I was a little girl, I lived in the desert. My mother was one of the many spell weavers, a great general, and a proud woman. Unfortunately, my penchant for books and learning, and the desire to live elsewhere, made me less desirable to those of my clan. So I set off from that place as soon as I could. Before I came to this island, I learned that the city had been destroyed by some great calamity. My only regret, even to this day, is that I left without saying goodbye to my mother. You see your eyes dim, and you see your head turn up towards Mother. What was her name? It was, and the memory cuts short. And when you come to, you see Selah collapse, her body's convulsing.
Oh, uh, uh, Mother, I I would like to help her.
Okay. Go ahead and make a. I'm gonna have you make an intelligence check first to see if you can determine what. You know what? No, let's just stick with the medicine check instead of making this complicated. Let's just go with the medicine check.
18.
All right. You're able to recognize that it's some sort of neurological issue, like it's a seizure. So you're able to put a pillow under her head and you back away and let the convulsions run their course. And eventually her body relaxes and she blinks her eyes and she looks at you and she says, Did you learn what you were looking for?
I think so. But I'm afraid I'm terribly off course.
Why do you say that?
I think I should be heading for Velar. But I will see where the road takes me before I head that way. I did promise Mother I wouldn't go looking for it.
8. Why do you think you have to go to Villar?
It's where Mother was from. Perhaps I could learn something more.
Can I ask you one question then?
Of course.
If your mother was from Velar, why did she decorate you in symbols of the ancient Ankora dynasty?
I do not know what that is.
Perhaps if you come back in a few days when I've rested up, we can discuss it. I have some tomes that talk about it.
It would be my pleasure. I have some remedies that might ease your symptoms in the meantime. I can leave them with you before I leave.
Thank you, 8.
As I turn to leave, I give Selah a deep bow, and I reach into my satchel and pull out some herbs that can be steeped in boiling water to settle some of the symptoms and ease any discomfort she might have been experiencing after exerting herself so strenuously. And I simply say, "Thank you, Selah. I will return shortly, after you have had time to recover, that we might further discuss these matters." And I turn and leave the library, and I head towards Abal's house where Jokul and Riala were heading, while I was staying behind at the inn to learn to play chess, like a bum.
You spent all day doing various chores, whether it be around the house, among the city. But it's dinner time. And you enter one of the side rooms that you had passed by earlier today, and you see that the room is sizable, but it's divided by a decorative cloth from floor to ceiling. And Aquila works with you, Riala, to bring food over to the one side of the room where you can see Nadim and Jokul and Abal. You see Talib, the man from the stables earlier, and you see somebody that you don't know, but 8 recognizes is well, actually, no, Riel, you would have recognized him too. Is the man that was playing chess with Nadim at the inn, Hassan. And she has you help serve food to that table, and you bring in large bowls and set the bowls in front of each individual. And behind you, she carries a large pitcher full of steaming water, and she fills each bowl with the steaming water and hands soap and linen cloths to each diner. And then she has you bring another set of platters, all carrying the same food, to the table on the other side of the cloth, where you see Sehar, and you see an older woman that you don't recognize, but she also has a similar chain link tattoo uh, below her bottom lip. And again, she sets bowls in front of them, pours in the steaming water, and she makes sure that you sit down on the pillow next to her, because each table is actually very low to the ground, and surrounding it are these cushions that are actually on the ground themselves. So they're not sitting on the footstools you saw in the sitting room earlier today. You're actually sitting practically on the floor. And she makes a big show of washing her hands, and the other people do as well. And Jokul, you're sitting on one side with the other men, and Riala's sitting on the side with the women. And 8, both sides have offered a place for you. Is there a particular side that you would like to sit at?
On which side of the table is our host seated?
One host is sitting with Rial, and the other host is sitting with Jokul.
Well, in that case, I will sit with the gentleman I played chess with earlier today.
Okay, so you're going to sit on the side with Jokul, and you're going to sit next to Hassan. It's a good choice.
I totally just pictured 8 like picking up a cushion, scooting it to like the middle of the room, and being like, "All right."
Yes, this is where they are satisfied. I am in the middle. I am here. So after they make a show of washing hands, and Abal does this on the side with you, Jokul, and 8, and Aquila does this on your side, Riella. And then at the same time, they both reach out their hands with their palms facing upward, and they bow their heads, and they start to mumble in their own native tongue. And the other members at the table on both sides of the dining room, join in, and you can hear what's going on not only at your own table, but also what's going on the other side of the room. So you know this is being done in unison. And it only lasts for a couple moments, and then it stops. And in the case of Aquila and Abal, they each take a piece of the bread, and they break it up, and they pass a piece to you, Riala, to you, Jokul, to you, 8. And with that, the other diners take it as a sign to begin eating. Now, in front of you is the bread, that slightly bowl-shaped bread. There's roasted goat and fresh pitted dates, a soft white cheese, a crock of some steaming orange sauce, and what you have to drink is water with muddled fruit at the bottom of the mugs. Now, I do want you each to make a perception check, and I'll remind you, if you want to use your passive, you can go ahead with that, or you can roll.
I was going to say, Jokul has no perception. I will gamble the roll.
I just saw Cole raise her arms, so for those of you that have watched Roads Uncharted, you know that that's a good sign.
19!
Woo! You all notice that every single member at the table uses only their right hand to eat with. They don't grab food with their left. They use their right hand to take that piece of bread and scoop up the food, or pinch at it in the case of the roasted goat meat.
I could have
I would be
sworn.
sure to copy what they're.
There's also lentils and olives at the table as well. So I mean, it's small finger foods. But it's still pretty decent sized feast.
Yeah, Jokul mirrors with the warning he got earlier. He mirrors their manners, like monkey see, monkey do. Like, what did he do? Crap, I missed it. I'll wait again.
Do they look like unhappy that we're guests? Are they? What's the energy? I guess I'm picking up.
Well, as far as you're concerned, Riala, you see Aquila and this other woman. They're talking. They're in full blown conversation now in their own native tongue, and every once in a while they'll turn to you and Sahar and they'll say something. And there is actually at one point Sahar turns to you and says, "Riala, it was, yes."
Oui. Yes.
You do not speak Isharan, do you?
No, I'm afraid that I don't.
All right. My aunt Aquila, she can understand a little from the mercenaries that came in when she was a little girl, but she does not speak it. In fact, my mother, and she points to the other woman at the table, does not speak common either. So if there is something that you would like said and not misinterpreted, I can help. Sorry, I was not here today to assist, but I can do what I can now.
Oh, that's quite all right. You've already done so much. We appreciate your family letting us stay here. It's very kind of you.
Thank you.
I was going, yeah, don't be afraid to let us know if you need anything.
That is very much appreciated. Thank you. She turns and says something to her mother and her aunt in Isharan, and they look at you, both of them, and smile and nod their head.
I give a polite bow of my head as well.
Now, Jogel and 8, on your side of the cloth, the men, knowing that you speak common, are having most of their conversation in common. There's very little that they are saying in Isharan. And Nadim turns to you and says, "So, I see you did not destroy my brother's house. You must have done good work for him to feed you such a lovely feast."
I might have taken some liberties with the shutters, but they appear to have gotten done.
So, tell me, 8, Joku. And this is from Hassan. What do you plan to do in Isha while you are here?
The plan was to resupply, make sure we're well stocked on water, and carry on our way. We were only passing through. We had been traveling with a friend, and we parted ways shortly before entering the city. So
What is your final destination? Now, to be fair, I'm going to make a quick interjection. To be fair, a very similar conversation is being had on Riala's side because Sahar, being one of the better common speakers in the room, would also have been asking Riala. So keep that in mind, you guys, that these conversations, oddly enough, are happening almost the same. We do not get many outsiders here. Now, as this part of the conversation is going on, dinner is actually beginning to wrap up, and Sahar takes it upon herself to clear the dishes first on the side with Jokul and Eight, and then next with the side with you, Riala. And she goes into the kitchen when she's all done clearing the tables, and she comes back out with a large wooden tray. And on this tray sits a pewter tea set surrounded by mugs made of glass with pewter handles. And she sets first on, as always, first on the side with Jokul and A, and next on with the side with you, Riala. She places a glass in front of each of you and goes around and she pours coffee. What comes out is coffee. And Jokul and Riala, you can smell it, and it's dark and inviting, and you can smell a hint of cinnamon and cardamom. And each individual at the table around you gently picks up their mug and slowly takes in the smells before they take gentle sips. And they turn to you and they watch the three of you to see what your reaction will be.
Riala's face probably lights up because that sounds amazing. So, takes a sip and gives them a smile and say, "Oh, I've never. This is very good. How do you make this?"
Sahar turns to you and says, well, we brew the coffee, and before we pour it into the tea set, we put the spices down at the bottom so that as the liquid fills the pitcher, it makes a nice stirring motion. It mixes itself and it sits for a little while and it steeps before it is served. Do you not mix spices in your coffee?
I don't get to have coffee very often, but usually no. I might have to start though, because I'm quite good with spices myself, and herbs and all that sort of thing.
If you would like a real treat, you should try putting saffron in your coffee. But that is a very expensive spice, and with the princess's wedding tomorrow, all of the more expensive spices have gone to making the feast for her bridal party.
Saffron was very expensive in my hometown as well. That doesn't surprise me, but that does sound very good. I wouldn't have thought of it.
And where did you say you came from again?
I've been on the road for some time now. Eh, mm, I'm from all over. The most time I spent in one place was Celine.
Ah, you spent time at the city on the coast, then. Is the ocean as big as they say?
I thought so. It was beautiful.
I cannot imagine having that much water. We have the fountain, but it is mostly used for freshing water so that we can cook. In fact, one of the best times I have been told is when the royal family gets married or has a large celebration like a wedding, because the whole town takes a day off and we can go to the bathhouse and luxuriate in oils and hot water, things that we don't normally get. It is often considered wasteful, but we are given a special treat.
Sounds lovely. Do you find yourself without water a lot?
We find ways to keep ourselves clean. We wash our hands often, but we have found ways of using the sand and a little mud to keep the rest of our bodies clean. Water is a very precious commodity. It reaches back to when we used to wander the desert and did not live in a city such as this. So even though we have access to fresh water and have for 200 years, we still treat it with respect.
That makes sense. Things that you didn't have are very special. I can empathize with that.
Sahar stops. Would you and Jo cool and eat? Would you like to attend the wedding tomorrow? Many of the vendors will be much more busy with preparing for the wedding. They might not be available for you to resupply. If you would like, you could be our honored guests, and you could leave the day after when you can gather your supplies.
That's very kind of you. I look down at kind of my very still drab clothing. I didn't branch very far from my usual outfit, and I'll kind of just be like, we travel light. I don't think I have anything.
Oh, you would not have to worry about that. We are all going to be wearing new clothing for the wedding. Um, we would be more than happy to find something for you all to wear if you would like to go.
I think that would be lovely if you're okay with that. We don't want to impose.
The whole city will be celebrating. The royal family is going to be feasting us and providing entertainment. So a few more bodies would not be trouble, I would imagine.
Thank you so very much. Yes, I think we'd like to attend with you.
It is settled then. And she stands up from the table. I think that it is getting late and you have had a long day. Um, let me show you to your room. I am sorry that my family only has one room for the three of you, if that is still acceptable.
So that's fine with us.
Wonderful. Then if you will follow me, and she pulls back the curtain and waves to Jokul and Eight. If you will follow me, I shall take you to your room, and you can get some sleep before the festivities tomorrow. She bows her head slightly, and she leads you back into one of the other doorways that you walked by earlier this morning. And she leads you to a room with a simple bed, wooden frame, straw mattress, couple of blankets, pillows, and there's a small wooden table and chair, and looks to be a bottle of ink and some sheets of paper. very sparse room. And there's a small trunk at the foot of the bed as well.
How big is the bed?
Enough for 2 people.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, so Sahar leads you into the room, and then she leaves you alone to do what you need to get ready for bed.
Could I tell? I don't know, like what we saw in this little apartment, but would it be frowned upon for Jokul and I to share a bed? Is that given like the table situation?
Well, considering they gave you a room with only 1 bed, I mean,
That's what I thought, but at the same time, it's like.
let's
how
put it
far
this way:
is
you
the
did
bed?
see people, men and women, walking and talking and everything at the marketplace. This dinner was probably the first time you've actually seen people separated.
I get the feeling that meals are more ritual than actual like separation. It's
Yeah, traditional.
yeah. I'm like, how word to that? And if nothing else, I mean, if it's uncomfortably small, I mean, Rial is small, Jokel's kind of lanky, so I mean, if nothing else, he has their tent. He could easily make the tent into a hammock and just be like, all right, hammock in the corner.
I thought you were going to say Jokel was going to go sleep in the back courtyard.
No, but the retreating to the stables and just being like,
Back to familiar territory.
yeah, just like,
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, he's an elf. He only needs the like 4 hours of sleep. He just disappears when nobody's watching, and then comes back, and 8's the only one who knows he was gone.
Yeah, I guess if no one has anything to do, I snuggle up real close to Jokul and go to sleep. Since I'm the only one who needs fucking 8
8
hours
hours.
of sleep.
And you've only really had like 4 hours before that because you left at midnight and you've been working all day in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, I'm dead. I like if
Which
I
is
was
like hard
talking,
work.
I pass out probably mid sentence, like fall asleep on Jokel's chest, just like.
As soon as you hit the pillow.
I mean, if nothing else, 8 and Jokel are probably used to this, and just Rial is like out cold, like, I still got stuff to do.
Image, we're going to call the session for today. And we hope to see you next time and see what Isha holds for our adventures. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us as always. And we'll see what shenanigans, if any, that these 3 can get into at a wedding in another culture. I mean, this could be bad. This could be excellent. We'll see.
I'm gonna laugh when it's just like all of it is in the other language and we don't understand a single thing. Like, well,
It's all Greek to me, right?
it would be a great wedding. Just be like, yep, can't understand a thing.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night or a good day, depending on when you're listening to. Just have a good whatever.